So this is a little film to show you a bit more about the satin stitch element of working the Ulster pocket. Satin stitch is always one of those stitches that people worry about and find difficult to get to look really good. So we're going to work on that a little bit today and find a good solution. So we're going to begin with a split stitch outline. I've got flourish in my needle and I've got a number 10 embroidery needle. And I'm going to cast on with my waist knot technique, which is putting the knot at the side and working 2 little stitches within the design area. We're then going to start at the base of the first leaf and outline the top edge. So we take a stitch forward and then we come up through the centre of it, splitting it in half. Take the stitch forward and come up through the centre, splitting the thread itself in half again. Now you'll notice that my stitches aren't too small. If you go too small on your split stitch, it can actually result in quite a lumpy edge. So don't be trying to make them minuscule. I would say that the tighter the curve, the smaller the stitch needs to be to get smoothly around the curve. But this is quite a gentle curve, so we're not going to worry about that too much. Be sure that your split stitch is absolutely definitely covering your design line. If anything, it should be a fraction outside the design line. When we work the satin stitch over the top, you're going to find that it pulls in a little bit and therefore the line can reveal itself out the other side again. So try and keep this just slightly outside so that we're going to be sure that's covered. To just clip off my knot because it's getting in my way. So we just clip that away. And then we're going to work right to the tip. And I like to extend my split stitch just a wee bit beyond the tip of the leaf, just to give us a lovely sharp point. We're then going to work down the other side, so we're going to come up ahead and we're going to work back and tuck the needle under the previous section of split stitch. So we've got a really nice sharp point. So we don't split the stitch at the very tip of the leaf, we underlap them there, and that gives you a really sharp end to then help with getting a sharp tip with the satin stitch. So as we come down this side, this edge is a little bit more curvaceous, so we're going to reduce the size of the stitch a little bit to fit to that curve. You can also find with split stitch on a curve that it tends to want to roll inwards. We're trying to make a curved edge with what are actually little straight stitches, and they want to roll in on the shape. So if you get that problem happening, you need to be in control of that. And we're going to bring the needle up at a slight angle, hook the stitch, and lever the stitch out to fit the curve. So basically don't let the split stitch beat you, get hold of it and push it to where you want it to be. Again, we're making sure that we're really thoroughly covering the print line and coming a little bit beyond that. Many people ask, why do we come up through the stitch like this and split it rather than coming up ahead and dropping back down into the stitch like so? I much prefer the method of coming up through your existing stitch and splitting it as you rise the needle up from underneath. That's because it produces much less bulk on the reverse of the work, which is particularly important in white work because you want the work to sit flat. It also uses more thread and it tends to produce a less smooth line on the front of the work. So I would always opt for that coming up through, splitting on your way up if you can. If you find that method really, really difficult, then it's perfectly fine to work the other way. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference. I'm now going to lock off my thread. Now, if you were working your piece, you would be continuing with the same white flourish for padding the centre. But I'm going to be using some blue because I want you to be able to see the colours more clearly. And by the way, that's also why I'm working on a grey linen rather than the white. White on white doesn't come up very well on the film, so the grey is just to make that easier for you to see.